Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the Alabama Student Eagles podcast. My name is Brady Johnson.
And mine is Joe Blocker.
And today we are doing the second edition of our Gen Z panel discussions. So we've got two young conservatives joining us today. They're both students at the University of Alabama, and they traveled up here to Coleman to join us for this episode of our podcast. So we're really excited to have them on. We have Anna Hawthorne joining us. She is the Turning Point chapter chair at Alabama, and she's involved with a lot of really great things with young conservatives in the state. And then we also have Dawson Duncan, who's really involved in a lot of different things. He's also a student at Alabama and a great young conservative leader right now. And so thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. And we want to really dive into a bunch of different issues, learn what you guys care about, learn about some of the different issues that really interest you right now and that you think are relevant for Gen Z during this time. And so, but I'd love to just start it out by asking you guys to tell us a little bit about yourselves, maybe your background, your story, and how you ended up getting involved in politics.
Me first?
You can go
Rock, paper,
first.
scissors.
Ladies first.
Okay. Well, I always grew up conservative, and my political journey really began in ninth grade. I began a mental health initiative, and I'm very passionate about mental health and really saw a need in my community. This was around 2022, and at the time, there were 15 plus kids that attempted suicide in my school system. And while I was involved in this initiative, I discovered Turning Point USA. And I would like to note that a lot of people in this initiative had different views than me. Mental health is more like a priority for the liberal movement. And so at the time, even though I was conservative, I was very tolerant, mainly to maintain my friendships, but I also didn't really see the need at the time to what I saw as forcing my opinions onto other people. And so I tried to start a high school Turning Point USA chapter, and before I could even get it approved by the school, I started getting attacked. I lost all of my friends that were in my movement or within theater and choir that I was involved in, and I received death threats, and it was a very hard time for me. And so I had to pick between this movement that I cared so much for and built or my beliefs. And I had to remind myself that you have to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Mm-hmm. And so now I've been involved in politics for about 5 years, and I've made so many friends and connections, and I just can't wait to see what's in store for the future.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Receiving death threats in high school.
Yes, I was in ninth grade.
Wow. I mean, that probably took a lot of courage
I
to stand up.
knew teenagers were mean, but
it was cyberbullying because they would never say that to my face. And so it was a little easier to tolerate. But I mean, I cried for a long time, but I really had a good support system that backed me up and had the same beliefs as me. And so I was really able to get through it and be better on the other side. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. So what about you, Dawson? Have you received any death
I don't have as good as the story, man. I don't have, I would say, a defining moment. But when I was 8 years old, my family started the foster care and adoption process with my little sister. And so that really opened my eyes from a very young age of how corrupt the Alabama DHR system is and how much red tape there is. And a process that deals with Alabama and America's children should be the most streamlined process there ever is. If you're dealing with children, this should be 1, 2, 3, bam, you're done. And it wasn't. And so it really opened my eyes to that's how it is in every system in America. There's so much red tape and so much corruption. But I mean, that wasn't really just a defining moment. There was also, I grew up in a family that, didn't do politics. Politics was kind of banned at my house. It was viewed as a negative. And so the news was never on. The only really influence I had with that was when I went to go and visit my great-grandfather. But slowly, just as time progressed from 8 years old until I would say about middle school, I was involved, but kind of hands-off involved. I knew what was going on, but not really doing anything about it. And then I guess my 8th grade year, it was COVID. Things had just opened back up and whatnot. And my teachers there was kind of a political motive within that, and so I went in every day, and my stubborn self went in to argue, and that's when I really realized my love for politics. As I went in there and realized that I was fighting for the better good of America, and then what really solidified that, and that I knew that this was my calling, and that this is what God wanted me to do, was after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And when it initially happened, I, kind of backed away, and I said, is this really worth it? Do I really want to put my family through this, my future wife and kids? Is this going to be worth it? But as time went on, I realized that you can't let evil stop you from doing a greater good.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I've had, similar conversations with people who have said the Charlie Kirk assassination is really what made them realize the importance of getting involved, because they saw, what Charlie Kirk did, which was essentially be willing to have conversations with people and be willing to have that discussion and dialogue and debate, like you mentioned. And he was shot for that and, assassinated. And it really, obviously demonstrates the divide in our country and all of the backlash that you can receive. But it also shows how Charlie Kirk had enough courage to take that risk, even when he knew he could be putting his life in danger. Even when he knew that there were people out there who wanted him dead, he was still willing to go out there and have those conversations with people. So it sounds like both of your stories, you guys had to face some of those challenges of, maybe growing up in a family that wasn't super interested in politics. And now, obviously, at University of Alabama, there's got to be some liberal students and probably some liberal professors there. And then obviously, like, you were receiving death threats in high school at such a young age. And so you guys both had to face those challenges and learn the importance of standing up, even when you're taking a risk, even when you're even possibly putting yourself in harm's way.
Yeah, and that's like the main message of Turning Point and Eagle Forum and Student Eagles is taking courage and taking action. And I know we just got started, but I'm already thoroughly impressed. I'm so excited for this conversation now.
So I thought it was also interesting. One thing that was common in both of y'all's stories is that you originally got involved because of caring for causes in your community. Like you said, mental health, and you said the foster care system. And so I think that's interesting. You guys saw those problems in your communities, but then you wanted to actually do something to solve those problems. And I think that's important too, because it's not just politics. It's not just who you vote for. It's not just which party you identify with. It's also about encouraging young people to take action in their communities and get behind important causes like, advocating for mental health or good foster care regulations and a good foster care system. So do you guys have any thoughts you want to add on to that?
I think far too often, and this is especially a problem within our generation, and I would say most generations that are still alive today, is that people see a problem and don't want to do anything about it. They just want to sit on their couch and post about it. And social media has made that so incredibly easy, is that you can just get behind the keyboard and type up some words.
Yeah.
You don't even have to type it up now. You can get AI to type it up. And you can complain and whine about this. But if you're not actually doing something, even something as simple as voting, people don't even want to do that. The numbers show it, that people don't get out of the house and vote. And so you brought it up yourself, Jill, talking about taking action, and that's what all these groups have in common. And that is something that the conservative movement itself has to mobilize people to actually get up and take action and get out the vote. That's something that I know, me being from Jefferson County, getting rural Jefferson County out to vote in different sections. Jefferson County would be a Republican county still if you could get the rural sections of Jefferson County out to vote. So I would say, the laziness and just getting people motivated to actually take action and make a change.
What do you think is the most effective way to get people to take action? Because like you're saying, there's a lot of apathy and a lot of laziness and a lot of people who just don't want to get off their couch and go vote, or don't want to go out into their community and meet people and have those real conversations. And maybe it's because they're, on social media so much, or they're addicted to their phones. But what do you think is the best way? Because I'm sure you've had conversations with other people and trying to encourage them and motivate them to do more. So what do you think is the most effective way to get people to realize the importance of actually taking action?
Well, I think for the Republican Party, it's actually proving that the words have meanings behind them, actually showing that we care enough to get things done. The president ran on a platform of voter security, and the Senate can't even pass the SAVE Act.
Yeah.
And so why would these people be motivated to get off the couch and vote for a platform that we can't even get across the finish line. And so until the Republican Party can actually get it together and unite behind a common cause, something as simple as voter ID, then there's no reason for people to be motivated. I mean, they should be. They're voting for the future of the country. But if they don't see a reason to do it, if nothing's going to change, then what's the point? And that's their viewpoint on it. So simply actually putting meaning behind your words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's all really great. I wanted to move on to something a little bit different. Both of you are very involved in politics. I wanted to ask, do you both want to be politicians, or were you more interested in leading things at a smaller level? Because for me personally, I'm not interested in being a politician, but I do love hosting a podcast. So just to ask, where do you guys see your lives going in the next few years?
I don't necessarily see myself being a politician. I don't think I have the guts for it. I think I'm too much of an empath, and I just don't think I ever could be one unless, I mean, if God called me to be one, I would obviously try to listen to him. But I think everybody should care about politics, and I obviously have a very hard drive for it, and I want to use my voice to create a platform and raise awareness to issues and be involved in politics. I just never could see myself personally being a politician.
I think that's good. And you can really make a big difference without running for political office. There's so many things you can do, like podcasts or just having conversations with people, or coordinating community service projects. There's a lot of other ways that you can have that impact.
Yeah, and everyone has different God-given gifts, and not all of those are going to, help you be a politician, but they might help you in other areas that can affect people in great ways. I know that, we're affiliated with Eagle Forum. There's a lot of people in Eagle Forum who don't particularly want to be politicians, but politicians still care a lot about having good relationships with Eagle Forum because of what an impact they make. Did you want to answer that question too?
Yeah, I got told from a very early age in this not to say you wanted to be a politician, but you wanted to work in government. So no, I don't want to be a politician. I want to work in government. There's a lot of nuance behind the word politician.
Yeah, that's true.
Politician gets a bad rap,
That's true.
So, but
a good word would be like statesman. You
want to be a statesman or stateswoman?
That's a good workaround.
I think that's hard to answer at my age.
Right.
I would love if it was just me and just my decision with that. Heck yeah, sign me up. Sign me up to the highest level. I'd do it in a heartbeat. It doesn't bother me. But especially in today's day and age, I mean, you're dragging along your future wife, your kids, your mom, your dad, and everybody, no matter what they did in their past, is going to be scrutinized for it. And so is it worth it for me to drag that through with my future wife and kids? And, if I'm felt to do that from a clear and divine sign from God, I'd do it in a heartbeat with no second thought. But I think it's just hard to say. Like I said, I would love to, but there's a lot that comes with it.
I definitely get what you're saying. And I think it's really sad that we're at a point in our country right now where running for political office or just being involved in politics can put your family at risk. And, it really shows how far we've gone down this road of political divisiveness. And, I think, for one thing that's important to say is that you still have to be bold in standing for truth and standing up for your values. You can't look at the divisiveness, because a lot of people will look at the divisiveness in the country and say, we're not going to get involved. We're just going to mind our own business. We're going to stay in our own little safe corner and not confront the other side, not confront these differences. So I think, for one, it is important to stand up for truth and stand up for what you believe in and to stand up for what's right. But also, there has to be a way that you can have conversations with the other side, because we don't want to be isolated. We don't want to just stay with our group and never talk with people who maybe differ with us politically. So I think there's a way to do it while still standing up for what you believe in, but also giving the other side a fair hearing and having those meaningful conversations with them. So what do you guys think is the best way to have conversations with the other side, whether it's debate or just having a dialogue? What do you guys think from your experiences is the best way to do that?
I just think it's remembering that there's a human behind the perspective. I've had a lot of experience with this, just with being around people that think differently than me. But I was at a point in my life when I was younger where I thought I had to identify with liberal ideals to be included and accepted. So I can understand, not necessarily that being a liberal is like a cry for help or something that you need to do to be like included, but I understand the point of view for other people, and I just think it's very important for us to have mutual respect. Now you can disagree, and you at some point you have to be like, that's not right, wrong. Like I feel that way about certain like specific topics.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like the broader scope of things, we just need to approach each other with respect. And I feel like social media has done a terrible job of that because it's so easy to debate behind a screen and remember that there is a person behind that opinion. It's so easy to dehumanize a person just because you're only saying a few words. Like you're not saying your whole opinion, you're not stating everything. So I think it's very easy to forget that person. I always say that we all want what's best for the world, but we might have a different way of getting there. And so I always just try to remember that whenever I'm having a conversation with someone.
And that also applies to the people on the other side as well, the people that we're reaching out to. And you know this firsthand, don't you, with the whole cyberbullying thing. You're totally right. Like it's very important to remember that there is a person on the other side of the screen, that it does make an impact on their lives. I haven't experienced much cyberbullying just because I don't have a lot of social media, but I have experienced a little bit of pushback in real life, people targeting me for my beliefs. But I found that many times God has led me through it, and I've been able to handle it in a way that made me friends with them. And so now I have all these friends, and even though we don't agree with each other, we still get along well. And I would go and hang out with them on the weekends, like if they invited me to. They're genuinely fun to be around, regardless of whether or not we agree. And so I think that that's really important to remember, because so many times we let that disconnection from humanity keep us apart, and we let the internet and all the hateful things people say on it drive people to disassociate. So I think really connecting with those people in real life as well, it really helps to bring it back, that idea that that's a person, that you can't just say whatever you want. You have to treat them with respect.
And that's what I was saying with social media and just the current age. We identify so harshly with what we believe politically. Like, as soon as you hear someone like say, oh, I'm a liberal, or oh, I'm a conservative, it's like you already have a preconceived notion that you shouldn't like that person, and it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to sit down and have a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
And connect with them on that human level, because that's really important. Whenever you're having a debate with someone, it's good to start by finding common ground. Like find something that you can believe on, because you're never going to persuade somebody if you just immediately start attacking their position. If you can start with finding common ground and then say, okay, here's something we both agree on, and now let's move forward with the discussion. That's a good tip for anybody who's doing debating. But another question that comes to mind now, since you guys have been talking about social media, I think there's a lot of tension there, because I've talked with a lot of young people who want to use social media less, and they acknowledge the negative effects that it can have, just taking up so much of your time and limiting the interactions, the face-to-face, in-person interactions that you can have with other people. But at the same time, you can also use social media for really good purposes. Like, this podcast is going to be airing on YouTube. We're going to have clips on Instagram and Facebook. So at the same time, as I'm saying that, we are using social media in order to promote these ideas and get our message out there. So what do you guys think is the best way to balance those two conflicting sides with, the downsides of social media, but then also the positives of social media? How do you guys view that issue?
I'm not one of these harsh critics of social media. I'm just not. I never have been, and I probably never will be. I love social media. I love the connection aspect of it, of that my family can be states away and we're still all connected within it. And then you have things like this, and I feel like there's an openness. I don't think you would know nearly as much about the corruption that goes on within our government if it wasn't for social media and how easy accessible information is. Now that does have its downfall. There's a lot of misinformation within that. And you see, it seems like every month some CEO of some Meta or Snapchat or Twitter, X or whatever, in Congress having to answer to questions about the negative side effects. So there definitely are negative side effects. But I think, to find that balance is you have to figure out that balance for yourself. You shouldn't let your 12-year-old daughter or son on social media. There's a parental issue within it. The government should not be parenting your children and telling you when social media is or is not. You should be a parent, grow up and learn how to parent. and say no
Amen.
to your child, and
Yeah.
you're not having social media until you turn this age. You can't handle it, and and so people create these negatives within themselves. And I know there's the algorithm and whatnot and stuff, but once again,
Right.
be a parent, tell your child no, learn the balance yourself, be an adult, learn what's an acceptable amount of time, learn how you can function throughout your life without it, and then I don't think you've had nearly as big as a problem.
Yeah, we gotta get the iPad kid
Yeah.
thing. It's
Exactly.
gotta go.
I
It's
mean,
gotta go.
I
Yeah.
feel like me and you had very different experiences with social media. Like, I love your take on it. And that's just, you use social media in that way for that to make sense. I just had a different experience with it, and that's why I'm so harsh about it. Like, I totally see the positives about making connections with people, staying with your family, like being connected with your family and the information side of it. But it can also be very harmful. And I didn't have social media at a young age. I had a flip phone until I was 14, maybe 15, I don't remember. But with social media for me, like I said, it was a source of cyberbullying. It was really a source of indoctrination for me. Even like just YouTube or like having Wikipedia, like the internet in general. I don't want to go into too much of it, but whenever I was in middle school, I was being told these ideas from other people that got it from social media.
Yeah.
Like, they taught me about like LGBTQ and like polyamory at 12 years old and all these different things. And so social media was always just very negative for me. I had very negative experiences with it because my parents didn't grow up with it. They didn't know how dangerous the internet was. And so for me to have that behind closed doors, I could search anything and get answers I could get on the dark web. Not that I did, but it was there. And so I just think, like you said, parents need to be more protective of their kids with the internet. I did a whole episode about it on my podcast, and I just think we
Shameless
need to
plug.
bring. Sorry, guys.
You
But
can,
we
you can
just
say the name of the podcast if you want to.
Yes.
unfiltered. We're on a little
Yeah.
break, but you can go watch my old episodes. But like you said, I just think we need to bring parenting back at the end of the day.
I mean, you bring up
yeah.
a good point. That our parents didn't grow up
Exactly.
with social media, and so
Right.
that's another aspect of it that you have to look
They
at.
were learning with us.
Exactly, and so that is another aspect you have to look at. But I think going forward, I would not let my child have social media until I think it's different for each child, but at least 16. And
Yeah.
So
I think most people in our generation would say that. Like, we're not going to let it.
'Cause
our
we grew
children
up
have
with
it,
it.
'cause
We
know the
understand-
negatives.
Yeah, we understand how dangerous it can be.
Yeah,
and,
like-
and look, yeah, I agree with you, Dawson. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with social media. And I think that you can obviously use it for a lot of good reasons. And it does almost have a democratic effect almost because it allows people to communicate freely, and you can have anybody can share their opinions on Facebook and have it be seen by hundreds, thousands, even millions of people. Obviously, that can be limited if you have CEOs at these companies who are censoring conservatives online. But ideally, it does have that democratic effect where everybody is allowed to share their opinions with everyone else on the platforms. So I do agree with you that there's a lot of upside there. And I think ultimately it comes down to how you use it.
I
And it
agree.
comes down to whether or not you have the discipline to use it for good purposes. I like to say use it for good purposes instead of allowing the social media to use you, because
to have
that's
the
what a lot of people do.
self-control for it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a majorly important tool. It just depends on
Yeah.
how you use it.
I mean,
Exactly.
just look at back when COVID was going around and all the information you got from
Yeah.
social media, and then
yeah.
at the time Twitter, when what was it? I think it was Dr. Malone was his name.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
When he came out, he was the creator of the mRNA and the vaccines. And he came out and he was like, whoa, they did this way too fast. They don't know. Like, there's
Yeah.
no shot they know what they're doing. And then they silenced him and they censored him.
Yeah.
And then he went on Joe Rogan's podcast and it became, at the time, one of the most
Yeah.
watched podcasts ever. And that's the beauty of it, is that you can get information out to where those
Exactly.
big, Washington Post, the big corporate news
Yeah.
media
Yeah,
were
and-
never going to cover Dr. Malone coming out
Yeah.
and saying, whoa. And so that's the beauty I see behind it.
Yeah, and there's so much potential behind it, and it is the ultimate form of free speech. Your words can make it to anybody, anywhere, across the entire world.
Yeah.
But it's just it's so hard to regulate it, especially for young kids.
I think ultimately it comes down to individuals taking responsibility for their own
Yes.
lives.
And
Yeah.
this has been an argument for a long. It's Section 230, if I'm not mistaken, that handles, can you sue social media for, can you hold social media
Yeah.
accountable for what's being shared on their platforms? And that comes back. That's a long debated topic of how far Section 230 goes. It was passed in the 90s, and social media and the internet looks vastly different today. So it's a long debated issue of whether
Yeah,
it
it
should be.
is.
But all in all, to put an umbrella around it, it should come back to the parents, be a
Yeah.
parent. and
I
Yeah.
think it's
raise
our
your kids.
loss of Christian values in America, especially today's day and age. We've seen it's still a Christian country, still Christian nation, but we have lost so many of those ideals, and even so many of the people who call themselves Christians don't exercise the beliefs that are written down in the Bible. I think that what you said was correct, Brady, that people need to hold themselves accountable,
Yep.
but they need to hold themselves to the Christian standard again, because that back then people were just better people. And I think if we had, more old-fashioned, that like the kids like to say nowadays, Christian ideals on the internet, it would be a much safer, happier place to be.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And having those biblical values as a foundation for your society it was central to the American founding, I would argue. And it really provides some core truth or just core values that you can center your society around. Whereas under the secular worldview and kind of the secular society that we're living in right now, there are no core principles. There's no absolute truth. There's no objective moral values. And we're kind of just adrift in this society and in this culture that has no roots and no foundation.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to ask you guys what do you think about the importance of biblical values in society, or what role does your faith and your belief in God play in your life and how you view the world?
You want me to take that?
I mean,
That's a big question.
Well,
So-
no, I think it's an easy question.
Okay.
It influences every decision I make in life. Am I perfect in that? Not even close to it. And should it have a greater influence in the decisions I make? Yes. But I try every day to pray about the decisions I make and to follow in His footsteps and to be a voice for the kingdom of Christ and to let God speak through me. I think my life looks vastly different if I wasn't raised in the church, and not only that, but accepted Christ and knew who Christ was. And it's easy to say, especially in the South, that you're a Christian, and to live it out, especially being in politics and in the South. Everybody says they're a Christian. You can't be elected without saying you're a Christian to the Republican Party and in the Bible Belt. But actually living that out and, the decisions you make and each day to day, actually following what Christ says to do and not just saying it, is vastly different. And a lot of politicians in the South like to do that, and they like to say it, but live life out another way. And so to bring that back to my life, it influences every decision I make, and my life would look vastly different without it. It's the reason I smile every morning.
Yeah.
It's the reason I get up out of bed. It's the reason for everything I do.
I have a very similar take, and Dawson has a really great take on how Christianity should drive your politics, not your politics driving your Christianity. But for me, I don't know how my life would be without Jesus. Like, genuinely, it gives me so much peace to know that I don't have to carry the weight of the world on me. I don't have to carry the weight of my sins. I don't have to carry. I'm going to start preaching. I'm sorry. But
Amen, sister.
That's great.
You don't have to carry all of that. And I just don't know. I empathize with people. I sympathize with people who live their life without God. I just see so much pain, and people can have great lives without having Jesus in them. But I feel like a lot of that is the temporary happiness that the world can give you. You're never going to find true joy without God. And I just, like he said, my life would be vastly different without Jesus. And I fall short of the glory of God every single day. And I just try every day to be better about serving Him and showing Him through my actions. And I wish that more people would see that it's not a rule book. I hate when people say that Christianity is a man-made religion, because it goes against everything that man wants. It goes against every single manly desire. And so I don't know. I love Jesus at the end of the day. I just don't know what my life would be without him.
Can I jump off that real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
You brought
please.
up earthly fulfillment and earthly matters
Yeah.
and how they're only temporary. I mean, just look at celebrities and the suicide rate within that. They have all this money, every car you could want, the houses you want,
Yeah.
the women you could want, and they still don't find fulfillment within that because there is only short-term fulfillment. I mean, eventually you hit a line to where that's never fulfilling. I mean, I've been extremely blessed. I mean, I've shaken hands with senators and governors, and that's what my life, what I love in life. But that's short-lived. There's no. I mean, at the end of the day, I get home and I lay in my bed just like everybody else, falling asleep. And if I didn't have Christ to thank for that, I mean, what's the point? There's no point in that. You know, what's the point of your life if at your funeral you're laying in your casket and the people are around you saying, you know, he had so much money, his net worth was
Yeah.
so big,
It's
his
temporary
house was so great, his
gratification.
wife was so hot. What does that matter? There's no point to a life of that. That's all temporary. You can't take that to heaven with you. I mean, simply just to put it, when I get to the end of my life, I want people to say, wow, he was such a God-fearing man.
Yeah.
He made it to the end of his road. He's in heaven's gates.
Yeah, and the reason why these Christian ideals are so important, and the reason why Student Eagles and Turning Point, we push these things is because, not because we're trying to force our ideals on somebody else, but because as Christians, we genuinely believe this is a happier way to live. I say this all the
Exactly.
time. Being Christian, living by the Bible, it's not like a rule book to restrain you. It's a rule book to help and provide for you. And so I feel the same way you guys do. I don't know what my life would be without Jesus. I don't know where I would be without him. And he influences all the things that I do as well. I don't even know what I want my career to be. Really, I'm mostly aiming towards being in missions, being missionary. And I've had this thought that, like, it doesn't matter what my job is as long as I'm on the mission field. It doesn't matter, if I am sitting in an office desk, which is the last thing I want to do. I'm an artist. I love to create. I love to sing, and I love to act. But if it means I have to sit in a cubicle to spread the gospel, then I'm going to sit in a cubicle. And I feel that way about this podcast. I feel like this is a gift given to me by God. This is my way to get my word out there and to get his word out there. Every single episode I try to end it with a Bible verse because I know the topics that we talk about are so heavy. And I want to remind our viewers and to remind ourselves that God is in everything. And that even if, America seems to be going downhill, you can always be happy. You can always find fulfillment. That instant gratification we talk about. If that goes away, you will always be happy no matter what because you'll have Jesus on your side. So I just love that. I love that we got to bring that up.
I love it. Yes, y'all had really good answers on that. And just real quick, I wanted to jump on to what you
Yes.
said. I think it's really important that people view their lives as a mission. And it doesn't matter, like you were saying, what your occupation is, what your job is, what walk of life you're in. You should view your life as being significant. You should view your life as a mission. And if you have that perspective on life of saying, like, I'm here for a reason, I'm here for a purpose, that is what leads to ultimate fulfillment and meaning. If you believe that, if you have that biblical foundation, if you have that God-centered worldview, that really does provide a lot of meaning and purpose to life because you realize that you're created for a reason. You're made in the image of God. You're here to serve a purpose, and your life does matter. And so,
I think that's the whole issue with wokeism and woke ideals is that they don't have a purpose in life. Many woke people are atheist.
and we've really been sold a bill of goods by the secular world because according to that view, according to the idea that there's no transcendent beauty and there's nothing beyond this physical world, you should think that people who have the most money and people who have the most possessions and the most physical pleasure that this world have to offer would be the happiest. But like you were saying, there's all these millionaires who have, everything that they could possibly want, and yet they're miserable. And, just look at the number of millionaires who commit suicide. And so clearly those physical wants, those immediate desires aren't what bring lasting meaning and happiness. It really is. There has to be something beyond that can give your life meaning.
And I wanted to say a minute ago that I think that the reason why so many people turn to woke ideals is because it gives that instant gratification and it seems to give your life purpose. Since being left or being woke, they are always advocating for something, so it feels like you're doing something with your life. You have a purpose in it, and that gratification of I'm special because I am, black, Asian, LGBTQ. The list goes on. They're grasping at anything that can give them their life purpose, and it never seems to be enough. If you notice, like, there's many people who are LGBTQ, many trans people who will be a girl for a month and then be a guy for a month and then be a girl for a month and then be a guy for a month. And it's because even after changing their identity the first time, it's still not enough. They still have to find new ways to feel special or to feel like their life has purpose or meaning. And I think it's really sad because this lie that they've been fed, it just eats away at their lives. And I feel like I know that these people would be so much happier. They would feel comfortable in their bodies. They would feel loved at all times, regardless of how many, worldly people love them. Because that's really the main ideals with, the LGBTQ community, is that you are loved because you are blank, or, CRT, you are loved because you are blank. But that they would always feel loved because they would always have God. And so they wouldn't need this love from other people, and they wouldn't always be grasping at, validation from humans. And I think that's why being Christian is, just like I said earlier, just a happy way to live, because we don't have to seek that gratification from people. And people are bad at giving gratification, but God is always good at it.
You verbalize that so perfectly.
Thank you.
I'm genuinely, and I think we as humans have like a man-made instinct to, I don't know how to word this, but like defy, like to go against the norm. Not everyone, but a lot of people want, like what you said, to be different. And so they have to have to find something to identify in. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's why it's so hard to get across to other people who don't believe in God, Christianity, because they don't want to identify with the norm. They want to be different. That's why they're going out to try and be all these different things. And I think we just need to find a way to like side with them. I don't know. We just need to find a way to like bring them into God. Like, I don't know. I just think we all have that like instinct in one way or another.
The blessing within that these people don't realize that they were fortunate enough to be born in a country that you can make those decisions and you have the free will.
Yeah.
You have free will in that. Do I think they're wrong in that? Yeah, but you were fortunate enough to be born in the greatest country to ever exist and to be able to make those decisions and to be a trans lefty or whatever, or to be a Christian, and you have that decision and you have the free will to do it. And I will always be a big believer in free will, and I think the Christian movement, and I won't get started on that. I think the church needs to get more involved in politics, or we'll be here all day.
Me too.
Yes.
But
talk about that.
He also said that on my podcast, if y'all just want to go hear
I think a lot of the people, they make those decisions hating America, but that's the beauty of America, is that you can make those decisions.
Yeah, I love that point.
And our pastor also said, he said this a while ago, I don't know if you were at that sermon, but he said God loves you enough to not force you to have a relationship with him. And like you said, like what America,
it's not
like
insecure.
Exactly. And so I just think that was like a good point because of you saying like
He's
you
a jealous God. He wants your love.
Yeah.
He's not an insecure God.
That's a really good point.
So as we're kind of wrapping things up, we have a few more questions. One of my questions I wanted to ask, this is a juicy one, is since you guys are both in college and you're actively on college campuses, have you experienced Roll Tide? Has your college experience been tainted with left ideals? Like, have you heard professors kind of indoctrinating a little bit? Because I've seen a lot of people talking about college indoctrination, and I know that you guys have a good head on your shoulders, so you've probably got enough discernment to notice it if it is happening. But I was just wondering, like, have you seen any of that?
I personally, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily the professor. I mean, I'm sure a lot of professors are liberal, but it's also basically written into the curriculum that they have to like expand the topic to these ideals. For one of my general education classes, Dawson has heard me bicker about this so much. I'm taking women's studies, and it's basically everything I go against. And a lot of people say that they feel like they have to side with the left in their assignments just to get a good grade. I try not to do that, but sometimes I just want to turn it in and not debate people. But I mean, this class is specifically made to combat sexism, and so we just learn about like feminism, we've learned about LGBTQ, critical race theory, all of these things, all of these different things. And I think it's important to bring light to our nation's history and just the history of people, but I think we need to go about it in a way that's not trying to push people to believe to one side. And now, a funny story I have with encountering leftist ideology as a student from another student, we were tabling, this was right after Charlie Kirk died, we were tabling in the student center for Turning Point USA, and we were just minding our own business. We had a board that said, what has Turning Point done for you? What has Charlie Kirk, the conservative movement, done for you? And people were writing down sticky notes, and someone posted a TikTok. It was these two black girls that were sitting in the student center. They were videoing us, and they posted a TikTok just making fun of us, and then we put out a second board because the first board filled up so much with responses, and they said they put out the second board just because they saw us and just because they wanted to defy us. And I just think that's so insane. Like, I didn't even notice that they were there, and I'm not saying like that in a way it's like, oh, I don't notice minorities. I'm not saying that, but I wasn't that self-involved. I wasn't paying attention to that, and so I just think it's crazy that people think everything's about them, and that can be on both sides. But I just think Alabama's pretty broad. There's a lot of conservatives because we're in Tuscaloosa, we're in the South, but there are a lot of liberals that do think they're a minority on campus when that's not the case. I think the liberal, we talk about this all the time, the liberal groups do a great job of uniting behind each other, and there's a lot of ways that liberals or conservatives can get involved on campus, and I wish that we did more things to, like, I love our Common Ground Club. Like, I wish that we did more things to actually have a conversation and not just be so hateful because someone's wearing a freedom shirt or someone's has a pride flag on their backpack, but it is everywhere on campus for sure.
I think the university is a lot more liberal than people would realize.
Yeah.
But it makes it fun in my world.
That's interesting.
And
That's
I'll
kinda
jump
fun.
off the women's studies. I'll be completely honest. I'm not going to lie to people. I took women's studies, and that's the easiest A I've ever gotten in my life. Talking about a GPA booster, so I'll handle the curriculum all day. But oh my gosh, would I take it again? Yes, I would in a heartbeat. I'm not going to sit here and lie. But I do think it's written in the curriculum, and the Alabama state legislators has, I think, tried their best, and I think there's more they can do. Yeah, but you also have that. There's a fine line in the conservative movement between where should the government step in and regulate this and where should the government not. And you know, it's a public institution, and so it's tax funded based, and so they have some leeway and they have some say. And the DEI bill that KIV signed in 23, I think it was, it did a good job. It took away some things that I don't think it should have taken away within the University of Alabama. There were some things that I think, you know, it didn't intend to take away that it did, but I think there's also more that the state legislature could do. Like Anna said, there is stuff written down in the curriculum that does tend to lean liberal. I don't really pay that much attention to it because it doesn't bother me. I enjoy the argument and and standing up for it, and so I really don't even think about it in like a negative light. But I do have friends that have taken the same course and come out and been like, "Whoa, like." You know, and taking a liberal exactly. And I was like, okay, you know, explain this to me. Sit down and let's have this conversation. Why do you think that now? And one of the greatest teachers I ever had, he was a West Point grad, and he was my government economics teacher. And he came straight out the first day and said, you know, this is where I stand politically. But I don't care where I stand. I'm going to come out here and I'm going to teach both sides. I'm going to teach you how liberals think, and I'm going to teach you how conservatives think. And he came out there and he did that each and every day. And he is the greatest teacher. And I can say that confidently because the liberals in that room and the conservatives in that room loved him equally. And he didn't teach you what to think. He taught you how to think. And so it just depends on the way your teacher teaches. And I'm not going to throw a blanket over it, like I said earlier, because I think there's evils on both sides of the party that, you know, force an ideology down kids' throats, and I think there's good people on both sides to it. But I don't like, especially in the conservative movement, how people bash teachers, and I think it's absolutely disgusting. I don't think you're going to get a better outcome by bashing them. I think you need to work on improving the education system within itself and not bashing the individual within the system.
I think the curriculum is the problem.
I think that's a good point. You guys probably have a lot more interesting stories like that. We're going to have to wrap it up here pretty soon. We're running short on time, but I did want to ask you guys a couple more lighthearted questions here at the
Yes.
end. Just to give you a chance
try
to
to keep it
share
short.
a little bit about yourself. We won't make it too personal.
Okay.
No, I wanted to ask you guys, what is y'all's favorite subject in school?
Oh, okay. I love history. I love learning about history. I've always had great history teachers like Dawson. I had a very amazing history teacher from 8th grade, and I was lucky enough to have him in 9th grade as well. And he was
Shout out
just
John Reckie, by the way.
shout out Dana Bloodsworth. You're amazing. Everyone loves you. They would teach unbiasedly, and I just always I love history. I love finding out the history of our nation, of
Yes.
the world, and just different people, like different cultures. Like it's so interesting to me that where you grow up can define your life differently, and how those people can come into a similar area and how they interact. I just think that's very interesting.
I love history too.
History is my favorite, I'd have to say. What
so
about you?
why not women's studies?
Maybe
My personal favorite
Darn.
in my life. No, I think history is an easy one to say. I do love history for the same reasons she said for the most part. But I also sound like such a nerd when I say this.
Nerd out, do it.
Me, but English is always fun. And from somebody with dyslexia,
Yeah.
I like the literature part of it and how powerful words can really be if you use them correctly.
Yeah, that's good.
True.
Amen.
Okay, well, final question. If you guys could go back to one time period of history, could be American history or world history, if you could time travel right now, where would you go?
You can think about it.
Yeah, this is a hard question.
I
to
don't
answer.
know because I can't imagine living in a world that doesn't have the modern technology and amenities that we have.
I know how you feel.
If we didn't have to deal with the lack of technology in the past, I would totally want to be I don't know, 16th, 14th, 16th century. I would want to be Bridgerton vibes. Just I would want to be a Viscountess or I would want to.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bridgerton play. But
That's funny.
I just I would want to dress up every night and go dance and just have to worry about men. But I mean,
How are we going to go from talking about Christ to talking about Bridgerton?
Yeah, that's a good question.
let's get past
That's
it.
the real
everyone.
question here.
What about you?
Mine would the Constitutional Convention. I
Okay.
think that would be an amazing time. I mean, to think about that those people were, for the most part, around our age and
Yeah.
forming a country, which ended up being the greatest country and the greatest experiment to ever exist. I mean, that sounds cool.
Pretty awesome to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah.
love to
To
watch
be in
them
that
put the
room.
John Hancock
Yeah.
on
Do you
Do you
there.
think you would have been George Washington or
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Alexander
think I lived
Hamilton?
during
Would you be in the room where it
Washington or
happened?
Alexander Hamilton, but I mean, I would like to think I would have been the one cocky enough to sign my name like John Hancock.
You scratched out John
Been the
Hancock's
biggest
name,
boy.
you put yours
Yeah.
over it.
Fun fact about Dawson: he practices his signatures every day.
Oh,
If
does
he's
he?
not
Okay.
if he's not doing something,
There you go.
he's writing his
It's honestly
signature
a tick
50
at this
times on a
point.
piece of paper.
She's just jealous. It's so
He's
good.
preparing for
I
the
have a very bad
autographs
signature.
Yeah.
when he
There-
works
there you
in
go.
Yes,
government.
he's ready. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
My women's studies classes prepared me for such.
I think I would also say the Constitutional Convention. To be in the room when they were debating what to include in the Constitution, how to form the government, that would just be so cool to be a part of that.
Is there
Yeah,
anything-
I
love
said
it.
World War II so I could be a spy.
Okay.
Because it's just I know it was a horrible time in history, but I love World War II history because it's so interesting. And all the spy novels that came out of it, James Bond, all of
Very
that stuff. It's just so interesting. I don't know. I would like to either do that or go back to times with Jesus and go and hang out with
yes, I
Jesus
love
in
that.
That'd
person.
be cool.
Yeah.
But you made a
But the
mistake.
Constitutional Convention.
well, I mean, it'd be cool to go back to biblical times, but I feel
Before
like
he
I would have
died,
made a
though.
mistake here,
Yes.
got flamed in the Bible.
Might be a
I
little
feel
bit
like
dangerous.
Jesus would know I was
Yeah.
time traveling and be like, whoa, watch out.
All right. Well, those are great answers. I wish there's too many good times in history to choose from.
I know,
It's really hard
so
to
hard.
pick one. But that's great. I think this was a really great conversation, and thank you guys so much for joining us. I think we had
you
a
too.
lot of
For
fun
having
today. We
us.
really covered a wide range of topics.
Very wide.
It's really good. Do you
Yes,
have
it's
a
been one
Bible
of my-
verse?
Yes, I do
you
have a
wanna close us out with?
Bible verse. So today's is quite short as well. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4:13.
Amen.
I love that one.
Because I couldn't use the one that I used with the Brylan Holohan podcast.
Gosh,
Again.
Brylan.
Come on,
Yeah.
Brian.
We're
trying to
why
keep
are you
it
taking everything
different.
from us.
Although it does apply.
Yeah,
But
no,
yes.
it definitely applies.
First Timothy
That's really
4:12. That's the verse. by the
Yeah,
way.
1 Timothy 4:12.
Yeah.
I
You
can't
have it
use that one
memorized?
again. But I think this one still applies.
Go read your Bibles, people.
Yeah, go read your
read your
Bibles.
Bibles.
Educate.
That's right. Okay, well, it was a great conversation. Thank you guys again for joining us.
Thank you, too.
Really had a fun time today, and thank you to everyone out there for tuning in today. And we will see you again next time.
Roll Tide.